Compared with man, we have to admit that the insect does not display what we could describe as intelligence. But don't feel too proud about that. Because where there is no intelligence, there is also no stupidity.
People like to talk a big deal about choices in video games and whether or not they matter. It's such a big topic for discussion that Choices Matter is its own tag on Steam. Choice in this conversation almost always comes down to plot and narrative. Usually these choices are made in dialogue prompts, and if they matter, they trigger branching paths and story events, and if they don't matter, they change very surface level elements and leave players frustrated. Only a few games have really managed to pull off this style of storytelling successfully, and they tend to be indie games or lower budget titles when they do, since those sorts of games need fewer assets and have shorter turnaround times that allow for more focus on writing. I think people often miss the forest for the trees in these types of conversations, though, because they kind of treat video games sort of as a choose-your-own-adventure novel and forget the other important part of a game, which is the game. The Resident Evil games, in my mind, don't get enough credit where credit is due, because these are games where your choices matter a lot. The choices just happen to be entirely in gameplay rather than story. I'm kind of spitballing here, but I feel like this is worth talking about a little bit because I think just so many discussions on video games get lost up in the narrative, the storytelling, which obviously that's an important part of it, but if we get down to the brass tacks of the matter, games like The Last of Us that are praised for their storytelling work really well in movie and TV adaptations in large part because, well, they basically are movies or TV shows. There's not a lot of complexity going on in the choices you make in-game, even if at some point in the game you get a little story node decision that pushes you along a seemingly different path. This isn't strictly a bad thing, I think. I've enjoyed cinematic games myself before, but it doesn't really play to the strengths of video games as a medium, because video games are, an interactive type of fiction, or an interactive type of media. When you get this sort of cinematic experience where everything's very on rails, you're going to notice everyone kind of plays the games the same. But in a game that's much more choice-oriented, and I don't mean choice-oriented in terms of like a Telltale game, I mean choice-oriented in terms of like gameplay decisions, you're going to notice everyone's experience is a little bit different. And I think the Resident Evil games really excel at that. And I'm going to focus on Resident Evil 2 specifically because I can speedrun that one, so it's easy for me to get footage of it, even if Resident Evil 1 is probably strictly speaking a better example of this kind of gameplay. Something I think is great about these games, just starting with the first zombie encounter, is they introduce this sort of choice-based gameplay without any RPG mechanics, the way, say, Dragon Age or Mass Effect would. So this first zombie, you have a choice right from the beginning here. What do? Do you try to shoot him? Do you try to run past him? Do you just brute force him? I choose to shoot him in the leg, and that is a choice. I blasted his kneecap off. I get to run right past him. I go for the key. I could have gone for his head, and I would have had a chance to get a critical hit, but there's no guarantee it would, and possibly I could have spent more ammo. I come back here now, though, and now I gotta move quick because he's not dead, he's just turning around. So the choice I've made is affecting the way I've played the game now, I spent 3 bullets, knocked him down, but I have to move quick. Now, this is obviously a very small thing, small like my dog, sort of, but this compounds over the course of the game, especially when you get to the police station, where you have to repeatedly go through the same areas multiple times. I'm going to use this as a quick example. I wait for this zombie to bash into the room, I blow his kneecaps out. You can actually just run past him without getting hurt if you're quick, but I'm just pretending I don't know how to do that. And then that zombie comes in through the window, and I just decide to ignore him and keep on running. Let's go ahead and fast forward to a bit later in the game. Later on, you come back through here with a different angle once you get the bolt cutters. And notice a couple things here. First off, that window is still open. So you get a zombie kind of rolling on through it. That's a really funny animation, actually. But now you can block it up with a set of boards, and that's actually a pretty important way you can expect spawn points of enemies. I go ahead, I kind of realize I'm going to need to come through this area a lot, so I make a point of just killing him with my bullets there. But notice, that zombie whose legs I blew out earlier, he's still in here. So if I need to go through that little room again, I'm going to have to deal with him, because I chose to just, handle it with fewer bullets by getting him in the knees last time. And now I can also go through here. And this is also a good time to discuss kind of another avenue of choice, which is inventory management. An interesting thing this game does is that it makes your key items that you use for puzzle solving take up the same inventory space as just anything else, your guns, your bullets, your healing items. So you have to actually make some interesting choices about what you think you will need in the area coming up. You might want to take, a lot of healing items, a lot of weapons, a lot of bullets. It's kind of up to you, but the more you have in your inventory from the beginning, the less you can pick up going forward. In some ways, it might be better just to take a single green herb over the first aid spray, because if you find a red herb, you can go ahead and combine it right away, right? It consolidates more space. Same with, say, your gunpowder. So you have to make a lot of interesting choices as to what items you take with you, what you'll think you will need, and what puzzle items you think you might need for a progression. So getting back to where we left off with this room, As I come in here, there's a lot of choices I can make right away. I notice that window right there with a zombie at it. I go ahead, I slap a board on it. If anything, that's a good way just to get those boards out of my inventory, because there's loot around, and I'm not sure if I can pick it all up. And notice there's that one zombie complicating my spending spree here as I'm trying to see what I need from this area. He's keeping the pressure on me as I go ahead and look around and see what the key items are, because I can't pick up that grenade and also the round handle. And then I notice I need this fuse also, and my inventory's full. So what am I gonna do about that? I gotta make a choice and just throw something out, right? And there's more loot here. There's gunpowder lying around. This is a treasure trove of a room. There's a lot of valuable stuff in here, but I can't bring it all with me. Now, thankfully, because I used that board, I only have to worry about the one zombie, and he's pretty easy to kite around the room. But you know, eventually I'm gonna have to make a decision here, right? I look at what I have. I decide that the most expendable things in my inventory are this single green herb or that wooden board. Honestly, I should throw out the board. For some reason, I decided to throw out the herb. I guess I decided I had plenty of healing items available, and that it just wasn't a big deal. So then I take the electrical part, and now I have to make my way out here. You can see in the window, though, there's already a zombie around the corner there. I'm going to have to back up and really think about what I'm doing here to get out safely. I run past that zombie as they kick the door open, put the electrical part in the wall. I'm getting my way out of here. I'm getting my ass out. I'm going back into the main lobby. Fuck that. And now I've put myself in an interesting position here, because now that room is open from both ends. Zombies can come in and out of it just fine. And that's going to make it tricky if I ever need to go back in there for that flash grenade or that gunpowder, because now there's a lot more than just one zombie, and that's a consequence of the fact that I overstuffed my inventory. I had too much shit with me. Now, this is all pretty straightforward, but there are other cool places where the game asks you what you need, such as in the evidence room. You might have noticed I had that weird little thing in my inventory, the spare part. That was a key for this little keypad right here, where I can fill in one of the numbers, and with it I can decide which one of these lockers is openable. Some of them are just openable from the beginning, but some of them you gotta make a decision which ones you want to actually, invest in. Specifically, 2 and 3 are missing from the keypad. So you as the player get to decide what item you think is best for you. Like, what do you think you're lacking, or what do you think fits your playstyle best? Do you want that knife? Maybe you just play really aggressively and you want to, just have a knife to get out of something. Do you want that? Well, you need both of them to get the fanny pack, actually. What I decide, though, is 2 opens probably the most things, but specifically, it's going to open a case of shotgun shells for me. And then the shotgun is actually in the same room, so I just merge the bullets I got from there with the shotgun itself and the bullets that come with it. This might all seem kind of boring and trite, and a little bit it is, but I think it's interesting the way these choices all add up and affect your playstyle. A player who's very aggressive and is just killing every zombie will probably find they don't have a lot of ammo, whereas a player who is very conservative on ammo and tries to dodge around the zombies will probably find that they don't have, that they have a lot of ammo, but they don't have many healing items. And now, you get some very advanced choices when you get into kind of repeated playthroughs also. For example, there's a Magnum over there in the STARS office, and you can come back later if you get a little USB stick that'll let you open up the weapons locker and get it. But when speedrunning the game, I found it was just better not to get the Magnum. It took too much time, it takes up too much inventory space anyways. You're better off just ignoring it, and that will actually lean in better to sort of the time score attack angle of the game. In fact, when playing as Claire, though, I do the inverse, where I skip over the grenade launcher, which is functionally her equivalent to the shotgun. And in favor of that, I pick up the little machine gun that she gets in place of the Magnum and use that instead, because later in the game you get a grenade launcher in the nest anyways if you skipped over the one in the police station. So you can actually just wait and not get the grenade launcher until Claire really needs it against the plant enemies. Now, this is all an exercise in rambling anyways, so I'm going to try and cap everything off with just this one sort of display of how things can change. Now, when you come through this hallway at the start of the game, it's pretty clean. There's just like one zombie who breaks into the window. Second time you come in through, though, there's a lot of windows open, and you're getting a lot of zombies coming through, and it's a very narrow space. So how you choose to handle them is not going to be a simple question. I get this guy jumping on me here, I use the knife to get him off of me, and then I just decide to keep shooting at him, just load in, just mag dump basically, spend all my ammo trying to clear this guy out of my way. But then, there's another one suddenly, and that first one isn't dead yet, so suddenly I'm in a position where I have to spend a grenade just to keep myself safe, and I'm loading just tons and tons of ammo into these guys, wasting a lot of bullets. And now I'm reckoning with something, is that this whole hallway is full of windows and full of enemy spawn points. These guys are everywhere. There's so many of them. And I have backed myself into a corner because I basically spent almost all of my all the boards I can use on the windows back in that other side of the building. So suddenly I can't really do anything to stop these guys. And the worst part is, this isn't the last time I'm going to have to come in through this hallway. And not just that, it's going to be worse the next time I come in through, because they keep on compounding things when you hit certain event flags in these games. Because not only does the game introduce Lickers, which are these nightmarish super zombies that'll just rip you apart if they hear you run or shoot a gun, it also introduces this motherfucker, called Mr. X by fans, who will just follow you throughout the whole game world and is unkillable. And if you start going, running around shooting your guns, he'll know where you are and he'll act accordingly. So now, once Mr. X and the Lickers are in the mix, I have to go back in through this hallway with zombies spawning in through the windows, knowing that I can't run or shoot, because otherwise that guy will freak out at me. But if I hold back too long, Mr. X is gonna be on my tail. Your experience with the game is just in constant negotiation with the way you've been playing it up until now, from what kind of resources you have, to what kind of enemies you're facing, and how stressful these encounters are. This is all because I boarded up a window on the wrong side of the building. But sometimes your decisions work out better than you might think. For example, I had to immediately go from there up to this library to move these shelves, so I had a path across a little bridge. Now, it takes a while to move these shelves across, and you have Mr. X bearing down upon you while you're doing it, but I had actually already cleared out the area of its zombies, so I had a little impromptu boss arena where I could take him down and buy myself enough time to move the shelves before he got back up, and I could successfully run from him. I could probably go on all day about this with examples from all the different games in the series. For example, there's a nice little Rorschach test of which handgun you decide to use in Resident Evil 4. And Resident Evil 1 and 2 and some of the classic games also include a great thing where you have to use these ink ribbons to save the game, which are a limited resource. So now they're asking you to decide, do you think the progress you've made so far is worth it? You only get so many saves. Do you think that was worth a checkpoint? Or do you even want to go back and maybe try to do it better? I think part of my beef with Resident Evil 6, actually, is that it really just doesn't have a lot of opportunities for this type of gameplay or decision-making. I can go on and on about this all day with just examples from across the series, and I probably will at some point. Right now, though, I don't really know where else I'm going with this. If you watch this whole thing, I appreciate it. I appreciate all 5 of you or so who watch these videos. I'm sorry there weren't really many jokes in this one. Peace out.